Hello. I was almost late. I was responding to comments from last night. I was typing a lot and I looked at the clock. I was like, oh my gosh, it's 3 o'clock. Hi, Cricket. Hi, Susan. Hi, Irish. Good to see you. Like I said, I was almost late. But even after, I don't know if you were there last night or not, but even after what I said, I'm like, people are in there with their feels. And I said, look, you obviously didn't listen to what I said. That's okay. And I was saying, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of subs slash supporters across all the SPTV channels, and they're all gonna have different opinions and feelings on something. So that's why you're never gonna make everybody happy. It's just not gonna happen. Oh, let me get my pillows fixed. So I'm on the laptop camera. I was thinking about trying the webcam again, but maybe at the end. I'm not going to do it in the middle. Maybe after we're done, I'll play with it for a minute to see if it's still glitching. Because before I return it, I'm going to reach out to their customer support. Oh, you were fine on what you said. Well, here, I'll bring it up on my tablet. Let's see. And I usually don't reply on the computer because I was trying to figure out how to do a heart and I could not figure it out. Let's see, comments. Oh, you were good. You're fine. I actually liked what you said. As a matter of fact, I respond. This is what I said to your comment. I just said exactly. What is it they said about opinions? Well, there are a lot of them. I wasn't sure if you'd get that reference, but it was there's the opinions are like it's kind of crass though. Are like a-holes. Everybody has one. Oh, wait, AA, you're here. Yay. I'm glad you're here. I actually, the last time you were here with, I believe it was Cece, I felt I didn't take advantage of that more. I would love to have you come back, maybe just for a chat, if you were up for it, where we could do a Q&A with you instead of trying to chat with you while I'm reading Dianetics or something. So if you'd be up for that, email me if you can at scientologywontwin at gmail. It's usually in the description of my videos. I don't take enough advantage of, because I'm distracted when I'm reading and stuff, of talking to a former member. So that would be cool. I mean, if you would want to come on, that'd be great. But I know a lot of people don't want to. So if just a quick little short thing, not a big long deal. So just let me know if you're up for it. But yeah, Cricket. But it was somebody else that was like came in and trying to tell me, well, this happened and this is sus and you shouldn't talk about this one person. And I said, I wasn't talking about one person. I was talking about the whole everything, pretty much since the beginning of when all of this started. Okay, thanks, AA. Well, we're doing the Dianetics today, so I'd want to maybe schedule it a little bit in advance if possible. Or if you just want to, so it'd just be a chat, just something fun. Maybe not fun, but you know what I mean. Informative. Um, just because like right after we were done, yeah, thank you. I was like, man, there were so many things I could have asked. Because I was actually, I don't know if you said it or not, one of you two didn't come in through Dianetics. And I kind of want to know how you got in, how you got out, if you're interested in that kind of stuff. And my nose is running, and I took a Zyrtec already. Oh. By the way, how much noise can you hear? Because when I play these back, I can hear the AC blower. When I was using, you haven't seen it yet, but I bought a webcam and I tried it this week. It canceled out these weird noises, but it kept glitching. So I'm not using it right now. I was very upset. I was all excited because what was cool is I could control it with this. I didn't have to integrate it into the computer, so I don't understand why it's glitching when it's USB'd into the computer. So, yeah, CC and BB, if you could get a message to them, maybe I'll do one with them another time. So, we'll get on with AA and do a little short chat. Just when you email me, we'll talk about that some more. But I thought about it, and I put it in the comments hoping you might see it. And I was like, man, I just didn't think about talking to you more about it because, we were talking about a certain subject and I get distracted. Not necessarily distracted. I was narrowed in on what we were talking about. So it wasn't until we were done that I was like, man, I could have asked this. I could have asked this, kind of stuff, how that works. All right. I gave everybody about 7 minutes to come in. Oh, you know what? Let me try this nasal spray. That might help. Well, thank you, Susan. Thank you. That's honestly the way I feel. I mean, I'm not a very controversial type person. I'm not. I mean, I'm just not into that stuff. But like I said, I do have personal opinions, but I talk about those with my husband. They're not to be bringing on here. But I understand that. But I also understand not everybody's like me. There are people that want their opinions known and want their feelings known. And I get that too. I totally get it. And so that's why I was answering this person over here. And I said, I think I ended with, that's the beauty of having so many channels. You can find creators that you like and I don't know the exact words I used. You can see it in the comments. You can be a part of that channel if that's the person or people you want to support. And I said, I'm still if you look, I'm still members of, I haven't taken away any of my memberships. The only time I've unsubbed was only when somebody was like actively trying to get creators to be upset with each other. That's the only thing I really can't stand. And that took a lot. It took me a little while before I did it. I was waiting to see if things would chill out. So I usually won't even unsub. If they're out there protesting, doing some work against Scientology, I may not watch all the time, but I'm going to leave my subscription there to support them, at least. So anyway, let's do this Dianetics thing. I'm kind of hoping we get done with this soon because I'm really interested. Yeah, Susan. Yeah. It takes a lot for me to unsub. It takes a lot. So I may not I may stay subbed, but I may not, I only have we all only have a limited amount of time to watch. So out of I don't know what the current number is. I had heard around 200 channels. And that includes even like Down the Rabbit Holes, who supports SPTV, you know, those kind of channels, and survivors and protesters and all of that. I have to point to this. Oh, I don't have time to watch all 200. None of us do. So we pick the ones we want to support, and that's why it's so great. Well, I got the wrong glasses on. Okay. So, and that's all I was trying to do, is to remind other people, because I think the comments, I don't even know if that person watched the whole conversation, because if they did, and see, well, that's the way I started the comment. I said, now see, I said, what you heard and what I said was two different things because of your opinion on the matter. And that's what happens. And I said, so I just have to know that not everyone is going to agree with me. It's not possible in this. It's not ever going to happen. Hi, Adrian. All right, we're going to start. Now, I think, was this long? I think this is long. Oh, yeah. If we get, we'll see how fast I can read. If we'll see where we're at I try to keep it close to an hour if I can. We've gone to 2 hours before. We'll see where we're at in an hour. Hi, Miss Sunrise. Okay, you didn't miss much. We're just chatting around. It won't take that long. All right, so I'm going to try to read a little bit faster. And I thought I saw a diagram. But we may break, what I was getting at is we may break this into two. It may be one of the longest chapters I've read. It's about 15 pages. All right. The laws of returning. This should be interesting. What we just finished, in case you weren't here, was returning the file clerk and the time track. And the returning, I think, was returning to like previous memories, and it talked about going into reverie, which we know is hypnotism, but they say isn't. The file clerk, I think, was something that it's just a name for where the files are. I think, I honestly can't remember. Okay. The engram has the aspect of and is not a live entity which protects itself in various ways. Any and all phrases in it can be considered commands. These commands react on the analytical mind in such a way as to cause the analytical mind to behave erratically. Dianetic therapy is parallel to the methods of thought and thinking itself. Anything which reacts against Dianetics and the auditor can uniformly and without exception be found to react in just that way on the patient's analytical mind. Conversely, the patient's problems of thinking in his usual activities are the auditor's problems in therapy. The bulk of these commands, the engrams contain, are not computable in any way. Since they are contradictory or demand unreasonable acts, it is the impossibility of computing them and reconciling them to thought and existence which makes the patient aberrated. Okay, so engrams are giving us confusing commands. Pretty much what he means. Let us take an engram which comes from one of mother's. Oh my gosh. I kind of wish I would have read this ahead of time because I probably would have left this out. remember how much he has an obsession with being in the womb. It's just ridiculous. Let us take an engram which comes from one of mother's bowel movements. She is straining, which causes compression, which brings about unconsciousness in the unborn child. I would really love for him to back that statement up somewhere from a doctor. Really would. Then, if she habitually talks to herself, a monologuist, as an enormous number of aberrated women do, thanks, she may say, "Oh, this is hell. I am all jammed up inside. I feel so stuffy I can't think. This is too terrible to be born." Yep. This may be in the basic area, the dream mechanism of the mind, which thinks in puns mostly. Symbologists, to the contrary, okay, may bring forth a dream about hellfire as the engram is approached. The pre-clear may be sure that he is going to descend in the fire if he goes on his time track toward this engram. Further, he may think his time track is all jammed up. This will mean, perhaps, that the incidents are all in one place on it. So much for "this is hell" and "all jammed up inside." Now, let us take a look at what happens with "I'm so stuffy I can't think." The pre-clear sniffles because he thinks this means a cold in his nose. And as for "this is too terrible to be born," he is filled with an emotion of terror at the thought of touching the engram, for this command says it is too painful to bear. Additionally, engrams being literal in their action, he may think that he was too terrible to be born. We've read a lot of really, I can't even think of a word, you guys, just some outrageous stuff. And I just don't get, I get why he's using it, because what I'm thinking here is what he's telling anybody that he's telling is aberrative or has an issue with mental health is pretty much telling them it's all your mother's fault. It's all because things happened when you were in the womb. It's out of your control. But I can help you. I get what he's trying to set up. OTP3. But dang, I get that they could get away with saying this stuff before the internet, when you couldn't, like I said before, you can't research it, and you just have to take his word, and you're like, "Oh, okay, okay, it's not my fault. Okay." But now, present day reading it, it's just like, why? Where? How did he come up with this? I get he obviously had an imagination because he was a science fiction writer. Very much so. Very much so. Which I'm surprised that they're pushing the book so much right now, because if anybody picked it up now, because we have so much more information, we know so much more medically, we know so much more about mental health, I don't think it's working. They're lucky if they're selling them at all. And then if they sell them and somebody reads it, it's going to have them running for the hills. Not like, "Oh, yeah, let me have some more of this." It's absurd. That's the word I want. It's just absurd. All right. Let's try this again. Yeah. Yeah, you're not allowed to question where to go. Well, not that one. I didn't see yours. Right. You're not allowed to question anything. Right. And I mean, I can get before the internet when you couldn't, I've said before, if I would have read some of this back in the day, I might have been interested. But now I'm, reading as a never end, knowing what we know now. Now we see the absurdity of it. But when the book was written in the 50s, things were different. Oh, thanks, MD Media. Yeah, I was listening to you while I was getting ready. All right. The emotional reaction to hell from some other place on the track, as contained in some other engram, may say that going to hell is loud sobbing. Hence, he does not want to recount this engram. Further, he is terrified of it because it is too terrible to be borne. That mother was only discussing with her ambivalent self the necessity of laxatives is never entered into the computation, for the reactive mind does not reason. That's what we call subconscious. It thinks in identities, seeking to command the analytical mind, which is your regular mind. There is only as much data as it is in the engram, and the analytical reaction to this unthinking thing is utterly literal. That's what he does. He takes the most obscure, vague thing and he makes it literal. That's a lot of this. Oh, I know, Dawn. I know. If I didn't have you guys and I didn't have it scheduled every Sunday, I probably would have put this book down too. But I'm glad that we've kept on. Hi, Haggis Basher. Because for every like really boring section that's blah blah blah, we get insights into other sections that explain a lot. Explain people like AA, how they got in, why, why they don't like doctors. It explains way more than what I learned watching Survivors. Because, Survivors, they tell their stories. They don't get, they're not going to give us every little tiny bit of information they've ever experienced or read. So it has helped quite a bit. Hi, Scooter Mom. I haven't even got 2 pages done yet because I've stopped too many times and it's a long chapter. So I need to keep going. Oh my God. I may skip this part. Let's see. I have skipped it a couple times where he's talking about intimacy when you're pregnant. So that's what he says. He says, oh my God, I can't even read this. I can't. I'm just going to skip that paragraph. Sorry. It's not important. He keeps going. Okay, let's see if I can skip that paragraph too. Okay, I can skip that. Stupid. You know how he is about unborn children and everything they go through. That's what it was about. How about another type of engram? Let us suppose that our poor patient has been unlucky enough to get a junior tagged on him. Let us suppose his name is Ralph and his father's name is Ralph. Oh, so now he's going to give us problems if you're a junior. He says that, oh, wait. All he said was, because you know how he says if you hear something when you're in the womb, it gives you an engram later in life. So if they're saying something during intimacy, it's going to affect you later, is what he was trying to say. So not for or against, just, I mean, actually, if I read this and I didn't know any better, I'd be scared to death to do it while pregnant because it's going to cause my child to have an engram. So that's what you'll get out of it. Yeah, that's what I would get out of it. I'd be deathly afraid. I'd be afraid to go to the bathroom after reading this. Geez, thank goodness, because I was young when I was pregnant the first time. Thank goodness I didn't read this stuff. All right. So we're talking about juniors. Be careful of these junior cases. They are unusually complex sometimes. Mother, see the Kinsey report if you've any doubts. A zoologist studied human intimacy behavior in the U.S. Oh, we're still on this. Is having a quiet affair on the side with Jim. This affair is no more painful than being. He's still talking about pregnancy, I think. But the patient has a terrible time with it. Mother, oh, honey, you are wonderful. I wish Ralph were more like you, but he isn't. I'm going to read it just because it's so absurd. I'm going to read it. So she's pregnant and having an affair. Okay. Wow. And this is the conversation. Oh, honey, you are so wonderful. I wish Ralph were more like you, but he isn't. He just doesn't seem to do it well. Jim. Oh, Ralph isn't so bad. I like him. Mother, you don't know his pride. If Ralph found out about this, it would kill him. He would just die. I know. Dude, don't worry, Ralph will never hear. First of all, are you really going to have this conversation if you're having an affair? Are you really going to have that conversation during? This is during. I mean, his examples are just off the wall. Sorry. All right. This little gem of an engram is more common than one would suppose before he begins to get an embryo eye view of mother. This won't compute in the analyzer as data. Therefore, it is a worry. A worry is a contradictory engram commands which cannot be computed. Yeah, I can see why it can't be computed. Ralph Jr. finds that he is very shy with intimacy. That's not what it says. I just can't say it that many times. That is the aberrative pattern. Approaching it in therapy, we find we have a sympathy computation with the lover. After all, he said Ralph wasn't so bad, that he liked Ralph. Well, the only Ralph is, of course, to the reactive mind, Junior. Oh, no. This one, I like that one. Oh, wait, no, this one. Did I show that one? Yeah. Wow. I mean, I get you would have to be a science fiction writer to come up with some of this stuff. I know that he may not, I don't know if he studied Freud directly. I think he did. But there was some offshoot people, I cannot remember their names, that also were like Freudians. So he's gotten a lot of this from Freud. A lot. I don't know a lot. I mean, I know the basics about Freud, just enough. All right, let's keep going. So is Junior. Fine. Okay, I said that part. This keeps our patient from approaching this engram because he thinks he will lose a friend if he touches it. Further, on the aberrative side, Junior has always worried about people's pride. As we contact this in therapy, he shies violently from it. After all, if he found out about it, it would kill him dead right where he lies. And there is another thing here, a sonic shutoff. It says right there that Ralph will never hear. This is survival stuff. That is what the cells believe. Therefore, Ralph never hears in recall. There will be more sonic shutoffs. Mother is promiscuous, and that generally means blockage on the second dynamic. Blockage on the second dynamic often means she dislikes children. In short, this would be an attempted guys. Yeah, and that's what I just or oh, good night, Irish. I understand. You remember how he's obsessed with unaliving your child, your baby? Here we are again, and it's horrible. It's horrible. So if you want to, I'll wave when I'm done with the statement. If you want to mute, this is what he says. No, he's got people freaked out. Okay, so he said blockage means she dislikes children. In short, this would be an attempted unaliving case which stabbed Junior full of enough holes to supply a cheese factory for some time. I'm sorry. That's ridiculous. First of all, the child wouldn't survive. You. Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking. Okay, I'm done. Okay. Wow. Just, I stopped reading ahead because I wanted to read it when I see you guys, but I'm thinking that sometimes I wish I had read ahead so I could catch that. All right, where was I? Junior, now a man, may have extended hearing because he is frightened in general of life, but his sonic recall is 0. This engram, then, would have to be sorted out through the demon circuits as impressions, which come to the mind. The auditor, taking what the patient says about this, may very soon guess its content and explode it by repeater technique. My other thought through this is, okay, I get that your baby can hear and things like that, but they don't know what's going on. They don't know what's being said. So I don't understand how somebody talking while you're pregnant would cause any kind of lasting memories because you don't know English or your home language yet. Adam. So, I mean, that's the biggest question I have on all of this is I don't think it's possible to get engrams because you don't know exactly what was said. All right. Now take the case of the mother who, a soul of propriety, if a little on the whiny side, does he ever have a good opinion of women ever? Discovers she is pregnant and goes to the doctor. Mother, I think I'm pregnant. I'm afraid I am. Doctor punches her around for a while, knocking the unborn child, who is our pre-clear 30 years later, into unconscious state. Doctor, I don't think so. Mother, I'm really afraid I am. I'm sure I'm caught. I just know it. Doctor, more punching. Well, it's hard to tell this early. What the hell? When did a doctor ever do that? I have no words. I'm beyond irritated at the moment. Let's keep going. It says right there that this, I'm marking that page. It says right there that this man patient of ours is pregnant. If we look, we'll see he has a paunch. That's good survival. That is. And in therapy, we find he is afraid he exists. I am afraid I am. And suddenly he isn't moving on the time track. Why? He's caught. That doesn't mean he's pregnant. That means he is caught. Further, he won't be able to recount it. Why? Because it is hard to tell this early. Consequently, he doesn't speak about it. We free him on the track with repeater technique. Sorry. Yeah, paging Dr. Howard, Dr. Tyson, Dr. Yeah, I think this might be one of the most disturbing chapters we read. Because he did talk a lot about in the womb and when we were talking about engrams and the silent birth. So we got a glimpse, but he is so hung up on this area. Wow. Maybe he needed some therapy about Freud. I'd like to know I've never heard about his relationship with his mother. Obviously, it wasn't very good. And he didn't have a very high opinion of women, obviously. Oh, this language of ours, which says everything it doesn't mean, put into the hands of the moronic reactive mind, what havoc it wreaks. Literal interpretation of everything. No, that's you, guy. You put the literal interpretation of everything in this book. Part of the aberrative pattern of the person who had the above engram was great cautiousness about advancing any opinion. After all, it was hard to tell this early. Now, let us take an engram from a girl patient whose father was badly aberrated. He strikes mother because he is afraid mother is pregnant, and father is blocked on dynamics 1, 2, 3, and 4. Further, get out, get out. I know you haven't been true to me. You were no virgin when I married you. I should have killed you long ago. Now you're pregnant. Get out. And it keeps going. The gift that keeps on giving. Yeah, but it wouldn't be funny. It would be just very confusing. Oh, I hope that's not true. Is he? Or are you just making a comment? He's still going. Oh my gosh. All right. The girl, some 5 weeks after conception, is knocked unconscious by the blow to the mother's abdomen. She has a severe engram here because it has painful emotion value, which she will never be able to dramatize satisfactorily. Satisfactorily. I can't pronounce that word. The aberrative pattern here demonstrates itself in hysterics whenever a man might accuse her of not being true. She was a virgin when she was married 21 years after this engram was received, but she was sure she was not. She has had a childhood delusion that her father was likely to kill her, and she is always afraid of being pregnant because it says now she is pregnant, which means always, since time is a march of nows. In therapy, we try to get near this engram. We return the patient to basic area and suddenly find her talking about something which happened when she was 5 years of age. We return her again, and now she is talking about something which happened when she was 10 years of age. The auditor observing any such reaction as this knows he is handling a bouncer. It says, get out, and the patient gets out. The auditor recognizes what is wrong, uses repeater technique, and reduces or erases the engram. Always and invariably, the analytical mind reacts to these engrams as though commanded. It performs on the track as these engrams state, and it computes about the case or about life as these engrams dictate. Healthy things to have around engrams: real good survival. Survival good enough to lay any man in his grave. If that actually happened, I mean, he acts like, hi Journey. He acts like this is common everyday behavior. And I know that even in the 50s and 60s and 70s, when they didn't have clinics for that, yeah, women did go take care of things, but he's making it sound like it's all the time. All the time. All these aberrated, messed up people were because of botched clinic visits, I should say. I don't like to say that word too much. He's calling I know you're probably joking, but he's calling this engram a bouncer. It's really from the womb, but she's recalling it at 5 years old. Then she's recalling it at 10 years old, and they have to go back to where it actually started, is what I understood from that. I could be wrong. He may change that in a minute. We'll find out. Okay. The auditor is not much worried by the phrases which assist therapy. An engram received from father beating mother, which says, take that, take it. I tell you, you've got to take it. What are these words? Means that our patient has possibly had tendencies as a kleptomaniac. Wow. Such things are the whole source of the impulses of a thief, the test being that when an auditor erases all such engrams in a patient, the patient no longer steals. The auditor will find it eagerly recounted because its content offers it to the analytical mind. The whole species of engrams, which say, come back here, now stay here, as fathers are so fond of saying, really? Accounts for a snapback to an engram when therapy is entered. The patient goes straight back to it the moment it is exposed. When recounted, the command it is no longer effective. But while that engram existed unentered, it was fully capable of sending people to an institution to lie in a fetal position. Anyone left in institutions who has not been given shocks or prefrontal lobotomy and who suffers from this type of insanity can be released from such an engram and restored to present time simply by use of repeater technique. It sometimes takes only half an hour. Then why weren't these people going to asylums and saving everyone? That's a good question. I'm sorry about that. I've stopped a lot because my brain couldn't handle what I was reading. Oh, that's cool, Cricket. Yeah, this is obviously something you don't have to watch. which I like to find things like that too, so I can do other things. So that's what happened to my ex-husband. I know, right? Mm, that's okay. God, if you listen to it twice, more power to you. I don't even want to do that. I mean, I'm definitely not going to get through this whole chapter today. I did not know it was going to be this ridiculous. Wow. All right. Let's see. But, I'm thinking that whole time, if they know how to save the world with their therapy and they can fix aberrations if they haven't had a lobotomy or shocks, then why aren't they constantly going to asylums and saving these people? Why do they have to wait for them to come to them, for people to come to them? They're supposed to be saving the planet. So instead of going out giving out personality tests, they should be going into asylums and finding people if they would let them. Back then, they probably would have. And gave them a half an hour of auditing. Oh, yeah. I did. That did cross my mind as soon as I said it. That's the reason they wouldn't let them come in. Or that's the reason they don't want to go out and do it for free. Yeah, well, I mean, let's say they went to the asylum and they at least got them to a point they could get out, then they could come and be a Scientologist and give them all their money. But that makes too much sense. Right. Yeah, I'm thinking the same thing, that they say they can help those people, but they don't want to deal with those kind of people. Traveling on the track then and wandering through the computations, the analyzer is compelled by these engrams to attempt is something like playing a child's game, which has a number of squares, along which one is supposed to move a man. A game could actually be composed on the basis of this time track and engram commands. It would be similar to Parcheesi, which I haven't played since I was young. Move so many squares, land on one which says get out, which means one would go back to present time or toward it. Move so many squares and then lose a move because this square on which we now land says stay here, and the man would say stay until the auditor let him out by technique. But because this is struck by therapy, it would have no power to hold long. Then move so many squares to one which said go to sleep, at which the man would have to go to sleep. Move so many squares until one was hit which said nobody must find out, and so there would be no square. Move so many until one was reached which said I'm afraid, at which the man would be afraid. Move again to a square which said I must go away, and so the man would go away. Move once more to a square which says I'm not here, and the square would be missing, and so forth and so forth. That's been changed. It is to us, but I have to remember that people in need, people seeking help may have found this to sound very profound, to be honest. If we think about it in terms of, I have to say pre-modern, when this book was written. So I have to us, it's completely absurd. To them, they're like, oh, well, okay, that makes sense. Because he's at least trying to give a reason for why people are the way they are. He's just given a different reason and a different way to deal with it. We just know that mental health has come a long way since then. I mean, if you had a choice between this or going to a 50s or 60s era asylum, which were mostly prisons where they experimented on you for the most part, I mean, I would choose this. I'd be scared to death to go to an asylum. So, I mean, I do try to get it, both ways, from my point of view, from their point of view, and the author's ridiculous point of view. Why is he writing? I mean, why did he? It's so through this book. It's like everything that's wrong with you happened to you in the womb. It's pretty much what I've figured out so far. I mean, no wonder. Never mind. All right. The classes of commands which particularly trouble the auditor are only a few, because the mind actually does some part of its thinking, especially when remembering, by return, even when the individual is not returning. All these commands also impede the thought process of the mind. In therapy, they are particularly irksome and are the constant target of attention of the auditor. I am also trying to picture a 12 or 13-year-old being the auditor for this and having to figure this stuff out and having to have been trained in this, who's not even close to being married and having children yet. Probably scare him to death to ever have children. Because no matter what you do, you're going to screw them up. If you go to the bathroom, you're going to screw up your kid. Yeah. 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 Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That's changed also a lot. A lot. Yeah, because we heard what Nora went through, which was a lot. It's horrible. All right. First is the patient ejector species of command. These are colloquially called bouncers. Okay, he's going to explain it. They include such things as get out, don't ever come back, I've got to stay away, etc., including any combination of words which literally mean ejection. Second is the patient holder species of command. These include such things as stay here, sit right there, and think about it. Come back and sit down. I can't go. I mustn't leave, etc. Third is the engram denier species of command, which literally translated means that the engram doesn't exist. I'm not here. This is getting nowhere. I must not talk about it. I can't remember, etc. Fourth is the engram grouper species of command, which literally translated means that all incidents are in one place on the time track. I'm jammed up. Everything happens at once. Everything comes in on me at once. I'll get even with you, etc. Fifth is the patient misdirector, which sends the pre-clear in the wrong direction, makes him go earlier when he should be going later, go later when he should go earlier, etc. You can't go back at this point, you're turned around, etc. Man, that's so confusing. I don't know how an auditor keeps track of all this. The bouncer sends the pre-clear soaring back toward present time. The holder keeps him right where he is. The denier makes him feel that there is no incident present. The fourth, the grouper, foreshortens his time track so that there is no time track. the misdirector reverses the necessary direction of travel. Contacting any engram causes the pre-clear to react analytically, just as in the case of an engram being restimulated. The commands are impinged upon his analyzer, and although the analyzer may firmly believe it has just computed the reaction all of its own accord, it is actually speaking straight out of the content of an engram or engrams. This is the method of repeater technique. So he's saying that we think we're doing something for one reason, but our subconscious, the reactive mind, the engrams in the reactive mind, is what's actually causing us to act that way, which we know for the most part, a subconscious can work that way. Oh, it'll probably be in here somewhere. That's a good question. I might bring up later because I've asked something similar, like, obviously, you know, there's a lot more to being in and reading and studying than just this book. So I'm assuming, after this, AA, you could probably help me on this. I'm sure there's more information. We know that there's DVDs, there's workbooks. They had centers and classes to try to break this down and explain it that we don't have. We're just doing this on our own. So maybe going through that with the classes and having an instructor breaking it down, explaining it in whatever way they do, would have helped a great deal instead of trying to wrap your head around this by yourself. It's the only thing I can think. I'm surprised no one did, to be honest. Yep. Yeah, so they had a lot of other techniques. They've got a lot more auditing training and auditor books and things like that. So we're just reading the first one. All right, where were we? Okay. As he goes back along the track, contacting engrams, the pre-clear runs into areas of unconsciousness, which are occluded by unconsciousness or emotion. In most early engrams, the pre-clear can be expected to yawn and yawn. It is not the command to sleep which is responsible for this. The unconsciousness is releasing, boiling off, the auditors call it. A pre-clear may, for a space of 2 hours, fumble around, drop off into unconsciousness, appear dope, start to go to sleep without any such command being present. Part of the engram bundle of data is the analyzer shutoff. When he is returned and an engram is contacted, the pre-clear then experiences an analyzer attenuation, which means he is much less able to think in the area. Boiling off unconsciousness is a process very necessary to therapy. For this, unconsciousness could be restimulated in the everyday life of the individual, and when restimulated, make his wits shut off just a little or a very great deal, slowing down his thought process. Now, earlier in this book, they mentioned that again, and we knew that's when we came to understand that in reality, in Scientology, especially if you're a Sea Org or staff, you're there all the time, that the environment is constantly re-stimulating your trauma. We call this trauma, not engrams. And it puts you in this state. I don't know any of you survivors have been through this, but you may not have even realized it. He said that if you're constantly re-stimulating trauma, that it can make part of your brain just kind of shut down and give you almost a zombie-like, what's the word I want? Situation's not the right word, but you're in a zombie-like, somebody will figure it out. And that in that state, you don't really think for yourself. You just go along with the motions of what's going on, and you're easier to control. And we realized, I don't know if you were here early on, AA, when we read that chapter, but that's how we came to understand what's going on inside, that you're constantly under stress, you're constantly worried people's gonna tattle on you, no one's nice to each other. You have all these stats you have to keep up, you're constantly moving, sleep deprivation, you can't question anything, and you kind of just go through life and is kind of a part, not fully, but like a part of your mind has shut down. And we realize he's telling us in this book, I'm going to save you from the world doing that, or your experiences. But in reality, he was laying out exactly what he was going to be doing in Scientology, exactly what he was going to be doing to Sea Org, especially in staff. Public don't really go through that as much, but that's how you keep somebody for years and years and years and years, and they don't even think about wanting to get out. It's not even a thought, because there's no room for it. It's not, you don't have time to have your own thought, is what I got from it. Yeah. And into like, yeah. Mm-hmm. 3 years? Wow. Yeah, I do wonder about that myself. They still have the engrams, which is weird. Well, I don't know. All I do know is they do talk about engrams. John Travolta, I believe, talked about the quiet birth because they didn't want the baby to have engrams. So they still do talk about engrams. I know. Yeah. Yeah, I can totally see it. Yeah. And he learned that before he ever wrote this book. Yeah. So, like here he's saying, okay, we're going to fix all these engrams in you, and this unconsciousness that you experience, we're going to fix. But in reality, he's not. It seems to me that auditing is just more restimulation and causing more trauma, to be honest. And I understand now why, last week I mentioned this. I can see why, because we've been really talking about auditing a lot the last few chapters. And I can see now why survivors have said, yeah, you're in auditing and you don't have anything to give them. There's nothing there. They're like, okay, now what other thing happened like that? So they lie, they make stuff up just to give them something, because they won't leave you alone until you do. I mean, that's total pressure and coercion. Yeah, right. But yeah, I can understand the being constantly restimulated, because in fibromyalgia, especially in me, your fight or flight mechanism is broken. So I'm constantly in fight or flight mode. It's kind of why I'm kind of hyper, and I'm easily startled, easily overstimulated, easily stressed. I mean, if there's just too much noise, if my husband's trying to talk to me and the TV's on, I can't do it. So I kind of understand that a little, how that could be. And then you're in an environment where you can't like desensitize or calm down in any way. Oh, well, thank you, AA. I have my moments. I'm better now. But the first like 10 years or so of fight, oh my gosh, it was horrible. I spent in that room, and that's why I'm out here all the time. I don't even like to go in the bedroom anymore. Luckily though, when I got sick, it was my daughter's senior year. So once she moved out, my house was a little bit, although they moved back in and out a few times. But like right now, my house is really calm. And so, but that's why I get easily distracted, especially if I'm out on the street. I can get easily distracted. But it's taken me many, many, many years. All right, let's keep going. I'm gonna go till an hour and a half. Wherever we are, we're gonna stop because I have stopped a lot because this has been a wild ride in this chapter. I'm glad you're here, AA, because it's helped a lot. Okay, I was going to talk about it a little bit more. The aspect of unconsciousness then reduces the preclear's awareness whenever it is contacted. He has dreams, he mumbles foolish things, he flounders. His analyzer is penetrating the veil which kept him from the engram. But it is also highly susceptible, when in this state, to an engram command. When urged by the auditor to go through the engram and recount it, although the auditor knows it may take minutes for this unconsciousness to boil off enough to let the patient through, the preclear may complain that I can't go back at this point. The auditor promptly takes note of this. It is an engram command coming through. He does not apprise the patient of this knowledge. The patient usually doesn't know what he's saying. If the patient then continues to have trouble, the auditor tells him, say, I can't go back at this point. The patient then repeats this, the auditor making him go over it and over it. Suddenly, the somatic turns on and the engram is contacted. So they say auditing has nothing to do with hypnosis, but yet he said, I swear, maybe I heard somebody say it, reverie is like hypnosis, and they want you in reverie in an auditing session. So they're saying they don't want you hypnotized and they're going to bring you out of it, but in reality, they want you in that state. So he's contradicting himself. Repetition of such a phrase over and over sucks the patient back down the track and into contact with an engram which contains it. It may happen that this engram will not release, having too many before it, but it will not release only in case it has the same phrase in an earlier engram. So the repeater technique is continued with the auditor making the patient go earlier and earlier for it. If all goes on schedule, the patient will very often let out a chuckle or a laugh of relief. The phrase has been sprung. The engram has not been erased, but that much of it will not thereafter influence therapy. Anything the patient does about engrams and any words he uses to describe the action are contained usually in those engrams, Repeater technique takes the charge off the phrases so that the engrams can be approached. Yeah, I heard somebody talk about it, and that's why I was I think I heard somebody talk about that, and that's why it was in my head. So I'm thinking about stopping here, because and then I think I might pre-read the rest of this. So what I'm seeing here actually it might go by pretty fast. They're going through an auditing technique. You know what? That goes pretty fast because it's not a paragraph. Yeah, let me go through that. I guess it's the repeater technique. And then we'll stop there. Natalie did. That's probably where I heard it. All right. This technique, of course, can very occasionally land the patient in trouble, but the kind of trouble into which one can get in Dianetics is not very severe. The engram, restimulated in everyday life, can be and is violent. Murders, rapes, and arsons, attempted unalivements, backwardness in school, any aberrated aspect of life stem from these engrams. But the act of approaching them in Dianetic therapy goes on another channel, a channel closer to the source of the engram. Ordinarily acting on an unsuspecting individual, the engram has enormous motor and speech power, ties up great numbers of circuits in the mind, which should be used for rationality, and generally affects havoc. Its contacts are soldered in and cannot be thrown out by the analyzer. In therapy, the patient is headed toward the engram. That act alone begins to disconnect some of its permanent leads. A patient can be gotten into an engram which, unless approached on the therapy route, might have made him curl up like a fetus and get shipped off to the nearest institution. On the therapy route, which is a return down the time track, the most powerful holder has its force limited. A patient can get into a holder which in normal life might be a psychosis. His only manifestation, perhaps, is that when he is told to come up to present time, he simply opens his eyes without actually traversing the interval up the track to present time. He does not suspect he is in a holder until the auditor, watchful for such a manifestation, feeds him repeater technique. And here it is. Auditor, are you in present time? Sure. Auditor, how do you feel? Oh, I've got a slight headache. Auditor, close your eyes. Now say, stay here. Pre-clear. All right. Stay here. Stay here. Stay here. Several times. Auditor, are you moving? Pre-clear. No. Auditor, say I'm caught. I'm caught. Pre-clear. I'm caught several times. Are you moving on the track? Nope. Say I'm trapped. He says I'm trapped. I'm trapped. Ouch, my head. Keep going over it. I'm trapped. I'm trapped. I'm trapped. Ouch, that's worse. His somatic is getting stronger as he approaches the engram, holding him on the other side of the unconsciousness veil. Auditor, keep going over it. I'm trapped. Oh God, I'm trapped. I'll never get out of this place. I'll never get out. I'm trapped. Contact it closely. Make sure there is nothing more in it. A trick to keep the pre-clear from replaying what he himself has just said and keep running the engram. Pre-clear. My head hurts. Let me come up to present time. Auditor, go through it again. If the pre-clear comes up with this much charge, he'll be unhappy and the incident may be hard to enter next time. Pre-clear. Oh God, I'm trapped. I'm afraid I'm trapped. No word showed up. I'll never get out of this place as long as I live. I'm trapped. I'll never get out. I'm trapped. Aside. She's crying. Oh, why did I ever have to marry such a man? So that's, I guess, where this came from. Auditor. How's your head? Pre-clear. Hurts less. Say, that's a dirty trick. She's pounding herself on the stomach. That's mean. Why confound her? Here we are again. I'm sorry, but there are probably way, way, way more normal moms and pregnancies than this guy thinks there are. Auditor, re-experience it again. Let's make sure there isn't more in it. Same mechanism to keep the pre-killer from replaying what he said before rather than what he now gets from the engram. If he replays rather than re-experiences, the engram won't lift. Pre-clear does so, getting some new words and several sounds, including the thud of the blows on her abdomen and an auto horn in the street outside. Don't tell me I have to run this thing again. Auditor, recount it, please. Pre-clear. Well, so this dame tries to bust my head in and get rid of me, and so I jumped out and beat the hell out of her. Auditor, please re-experience the engram. Pre-clear. Starts to do so, suddenly finds out that, like a piece of string with a loop in it, this engram has straightened out and contains more data where the loops were. I've got to think of something to tell Harry. He'll jump all over me. This was the source of his joking, jumped out, etc. Auditor, please go over it again. There may be more in it. Pre-clear. Does so. Old parts of it reduce. 2 new sounds appear, her footsteps and running water. Then he is happy and laughs at it. This engram is released because it may not have entirely vanished. Such an engram is in this shape only when it is contacted prior to basic. This is both repeater technique and an engram talked into recession. I'm going to have to stop there because, wow. That was a doozy. I'm going to read through the rest of it and see if there's things that I can leave out. Because when I'm reading it with you guys, I'm worried that if I leave it out, the next page he's going to talk about it again. Sorry, doggy, you need to go. Yeah, I've decided I'm not replaying that. I don't think you missed much. I don't think you need to get it. I don't think you missed much. If you don't understand something and ask me the question, I'd rather do that. I'll answer it if I can. I'm going to watch that Paralyzed the Paralyzed video. Hubbard puts the psycho and psychosomatic. I know, right? I mean, he acts like every woman since the dawn of time has tried to get rid of her pregnancy. A doctor punching her in the punching. Where did he come up with that? I don't even want to go into his brain to find out. But I can see why anyone who read this book, who was in Scientology, would be scared to death to have a child. I'd be afraid I would ruin it for life. I mean, I would think in Scientology, once you get pregnant, you should just be put in a padded room with no sound and nobody can talk the whole pregnancy. Because I get they do the silent birth. It's just got to be a silent pregnancy. Because you never know what you might say that would affect your child. I mean, he puts people in constant fear of everything they do. And that's where we were talking about restimulating, putting you in constant unease, constant fear of everything you say and do. I couldn't imagine that. we talked about last night too, that there are a lot of people with trauma that come in that feel an affinity for trying to help with the Scientology anti-Scientology movement. So I lived with a verbally abusive mother. It did cause me problems. So I kind of get an idea. I can't remember a lot of it as a kid, but I had to deal with her in middle school and high school. And I was in constant fear when I was at home. I stayed in my room. I didn't want to bring friends over. I never knew what she was going to say or do. So I get a glimpse. I'm only going to say a glimpse. I couldn't imagine being in an org or one of the bases around this environment your every waking moment. And I can see why they're deathly afraid of doctors and why no one goes. Yep, I can see that. Constant fear of not understanding, of going past a misunderstood word, of not applying the tech 100%. Yeah. I think it might have been you that said, when you first started, you said, yeah, you were constantly uneasy. If that was you or not, I think it was. If not, somebody said that. And I'm like, I think it's more than that. I bet it was, oh, yeah. And I understand that too. And that's why the thing I've really been pushing the last couple months, I think, is because I know they're being told that their stats are down. They need to get them up. And I've heard, through stories that you can't have an excuse. It's your fault. Even though it's probably my fault for standing there and not letting people come in. So I've told them that you aren't the only ones that are down stat. Every org is down stat right now. We have cameras on all of them. You can go on YouTube and see. When they went up to Dallas, they didn't even have all their lights on, probably because they can't afford the electric bill, because they're so far off the beaten path, nobody's going to stumble in. And I doubt they have very many public coming in and paying. So, and I give them the stat. So they think they have 30 million members. Somebody in my chat broke that down to 210,000 people per org. And then I heard somebody else mention the stat. Well, if you only had 1 million members, that's 7,000 per org. And then if I get them long enough, because they run in the door really fast, I get to, I barely see 20 or 30 people coming in. So I'm like, that doesn't marry up with the math. Make it make sense. I tell them a lot. So sorry, I've got a dry mouth. And I'm just, now I do understand. I didn't, even though I've watched a lot of survivor stories and a lot of information, reading this book has helped a lot, because I didn't understand why members, when I say that, I'm really picturing Sea Org and staff, because public are a little different. They have a little more freedom. But I get that they're under the same, but when I'm saying members, I mean the ones that are there 24 hours a day, practically. And I couldn't understand why they wouldn't push for medical care. And when we know they're hurting. Well, two reasons. One, I now understand that if have it tested to clear, you shouldn't have any aches or pains or physical ailments unless you've been in, like he said, a car accident. Two, if you get new pains and any of those things have to be married up with an engram that caused it, that you have to clear. So why would you go to a doctor? You're supposed to clear the engram that's causing you the physical pain. So I see that the older members going in, that especially the Sea Organ staff, and I know how I feel at my age and the problems I have. I couldn't imagine being there 80 or more hours a week in constant pain and discomfort, and going to a doctor isn't even in the realm of comprehension. There's no, oh, I hurt, I need to go to a doctor. No, I hurt, I need to go get auditing. Right. I've heard people say that many times. I just went to the dentist, but I just got the local. But yeah, because you could be in an unconscious state and they say something around you, and now you have problems. You have engrams. It's going to cause you problems. So I get that. So it has made me understand a lot more why of why certain things are done a certain way. Even though like I said, I've watched a lot of stories, not everybody's going to get to every part of their story and why they do things. They're just telling their story from their point of view. And so you get that and you get what they went through. Reading this book gets me down to like the black and white nitty gritty of what you all were taught, what you all had to go through in auditing. Because I've heard them talk about auditing, I've heard them talk about how bad the training is, but now I really understand auditing and really understand, what you have to go through in an auditing session, and dang, what it's like to be an auditor. I couldn't imagine when I saw that video of she had to be no more than 12 auditing an adult, but then realizing how much they are occupied with, in the womb, and things done and said in private, and for a young person, that's got to be confusing. Life was hard for me in middle school and high school, just dealing with life in general. I couldn't imagine adding that in. So that, even though sometimes it gets a little confusing, it gets boring at some places, there have been moments of, oh, I get it now. So even though it was a bit outrageous what we just read, it really brought to light a lot of what y'all had to go through. I hope that makes sense. And that's why I wanted to do it. It was out of curiosity, but it was also wanting to understand in a more technical sense, I guess, because I understood what people went through from their stories, and that it was unreasonable abuse, mental or physical or both. But I'm just talking about why we're reading this book, and this gave us more of the, really understanding what you guys were taught, and really understanding, what your mindset was when you were in, and why it was so hard to get out. Well, I hope so. That's awesome. Well, that's because, when you're in it, you're not going to see this stuff. You're in it. And when you're in something, even me, when I'm in an environment and there's things going on, I'm not thinking, how am I going to react to this? Why am I reacting this way? Nobody does that. So, I mean, when you're living it every single day, you're not thinking, why am I doing this? Why am I being taught this? Why, you're just living it. I mean, I've been in situations where, just something quick like that guy that came after me verbally, oh, let's go with the first guy that grabbed my sign and threw it on the ground. I thought I knew how to react to somebody that was going to get violent with me. And what did and I have my little barrier that I have set up so they can't get to me physically quickly. What did I do? My initial reaction was to go out there and grab my sign and yell at him and go back. Well, after looking at it after the fact, I was like, oh, well, that was dumb because he did that. He pulled my sign out, threw it on the ground so I would come out. But I didn't think about that at the time. You just react and you don't think, I've never had to deal with a lot of like violence like that. So it's not something I'm used to and know how to react to immediately. So that's what I think, from my little experience that you and other members and survivors went through or are going through, and why I think us being out there does make a difference, in that we might say something that might get in the way of that mindset, maybe might get somebody to think. Because if we weren't there saying something, they're just going through their daily life, going through the motions and the things they do every day. And that maybe somebody standing outside an org might say something like Tori. I always go back to Tori, because Tori said what stuck with her was somebody said to her, why can't you read what you want to read? So you never know what's going to stick in somebody's mind and get them to think outside their box. And that's why I think the constant daily protesting, it may only impact a few people. It won't impact every single person you talk to or at every single org, but you never know. And you never know what you've said that is in their subconscious, sitting there niggling at them. Maybe 10 years later, they might be like, you know what? That person made sense. I'm done. And that's the point. Right. Exactly. I wouldn't expect somebody to go, oh, you're right. Let me leave right now. It would take time. It took Tori. I think it took Tori time. I don't know the exact time, but it sat with her for a while. So, I mean, it could be 10 years down the road or more. How long was it for you? And I understand that. I don't expect to see immediate results. I knew that wouldn't happen. And that's why, a few months. That's pretty good, actually. I was going to say, also, that's why I try to change up the things that I say, because they've heard what I've said for the most part. I see the same faces. So that, like this last time, this older lady that always kind of gives me an eye roll, I just said, hi, how are you doing today? And she gave me a small smile. And I was like, cool. So that they don't think I'm this, because I had that, he was definitely a Nation of Islam guy. And he started a chat with me. I need to go find it and cut it out and put it on the channel. I just haven't done that. I'm such a procrastinator. He ended with, somebody sent you here. I know somebody sent you here. Like, I wasn't, because I said I was there because it was my passion to help people. And he just couldn't wrap his brain around that. He didn't believe me. But you know what? Maybe in the back of his mind, he does believe it. He doesn't believe that I was sent. So I told him, go to my channel and you'll see. So it's kind of those kind of things. A year would be more accurate. That's still good, I think, because I could see it taking. Does anybody know how long it took Tori? I'm not on her channel a lot. I've heard some of her story, but not. I don't think I've heard bits and pieces of her story. I haven't like heard it all the way through, and I don't even know if she said it all the way through. But I'd like to know how much time it took between her hearing that and her deciding to get out. But that was back when they used to talk to protesters. Now they totally ignore us, just like we're not there. All right. So I wanted to keep this at an hour and a half, and we're there. Let's see how much we got left. That one, I didn't know we would be talking about it that much. Okay, we're at 288. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Wow, we didn't get through very much. All right, we'll see how it goes next time. I might see out this week. My husband doesn't give me any more surprises. Definitely, I always like to be there Friday night graduation. AA, I want to get together with you and maybe have a chat, whatever. I'm open most times. Still doing the Saturday night late night, and then of course next week Dianetics. We'll try to finish this chapter. We'll see how that goes. It'll depend on how absurd it might get. So thanks for being here, you guys. Thanks for being here. AA, appreciate your input. It helps a lot. And I'll see y'all later. Bye.